Well, the film is about a situation lots of us will be familiar with, waking up after a one night stand. So we wake up in bed and there's a girl, and she doesn't really know where she is, and she just wants to get the hell out of there. She wants to get home as quickly as possible. And this guy, this good looking chap, kind of lingers.
Yeah.
I discover that there's a hole in the condom, and so it's a bit of a panic, and she has to get the morning after pill.
I'm clean.
I cannot get pregnant.
Oh, result. You want to get a coffee?
What?
Well, then you can't get pregnant because...
Oh my God, I'm disabled. I'm not bearing.
A woman called Aminda Verdi. It's basically her story.
Yeah.
So I had a meeting with New Zealand Film Commission years ago. I was in New Zealand. They told me about a chap called Arthur. He was living close to me at the time. He was a writer. Met him, got on quite well, and then I said, "What are you working on?" And I read the script. It was like a very early draft, and I was like, "This is awesome. I love her. I love the script. I love the idea. Can I please make this?" I want people to see her life, to see, like, I learned so much working with Aminda just by talking to her every other week and going through the script. I learned so much, and ignorance is a almost, it's not a disease, but it might as well be, because like you just don't know so much. So I want people to learn, but through humor and through romance, you know. I think it's quite easy actually. I don't know why I hesitated. The performances. I'm just really happy if you find your right cast, the right actors, and they understand the actors. You so much just gets taken off. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to, because I was like, I'm going to prove to you why I'm the right choice to make this. I can relate to like not feeling, I don't think everyone can, to certain degrees. I can relate to not feeling understood, not fitting in, and wanting to get the hell away from someone. I'm adopted, so I think that's where some of that comes from. So I have this feeling of otherness that's taken me a long time to get over or get used to. In this like fragmented, silly world we're living in right now, where everyone's celebrating everyone's differences, I think it's important to celebrate what brings us together and what makes us similar. It's a believability, curiosity, and a great ending. I love awkwardness. So comedy with drama put in it. But I don't like awkwardness for the sake of awkwardness. It all needs to be for a reason. I'm finishing another draft of a feature script, which I am in the process of hating. I think it's a really ambitious film about a kid that's adopted and grown up in the 80s during a satanic panic, and he steals a church van and tries to escape country. And I've got another couple of comedy ideas. And also we're thinking about expanding this, but we'll see. It's amazing to hear other people's thoughts. You learn so much by the way people react to the film. It's like being at a really nice wedding, being at a festival. It's like, hi, what's your film? When you meet other filmmakers, and there's less awkwardness, because talking to strangers is scary. So ultimately, I think it's encouraging.
Vacantia is a short drama about a council worker, Nadia Bashir, whose job it is to enter the homes of people who've died alone. These are people without family or a next of kin. So it's her job to kind of go through their things, look for clues to a will or a next of kin. And at the same time, she's just battling her own very severe death paranoia.
Instant death caused by upper cervical spine fracture. Body found 2 days later.
Well, the first inspiration was actually this particular job of being a death administration. They are actually called property protection officers. They exist in Liverpool and in Scotland. And it was something I'd never heard about. I'd read an article on the BBC, and I was really touched by the things that we leave behind, both physically and emotionally. And that's kind of one of the inspirations that led me to starting this film. I think that there's a huge amount of change that happens when you take something from a script to the film. And a lot of it also just, filmmaking is a team activity. It is not about one person at all. And I was so lucky to have such an amazing cast, such an amazing crew. I have to do a big shout out to my cinematographer, Niza Ilyas here, who is an amazing female DP. And, it was also her vision and a little bit of her idea of what the mood is going to be and things that came into the film. With the pandemic, we were casting, so it was all over screens, and that was something that made me a little anxious. So we did do 2 rounds, but as soon as she came in, you just knew that she just got the character immediately. There's a quiet strength about her that I really wanted in the character, that she just exudes almost naturally. And then the kind of layers that she made my job so much easier. I don't think I'm quite as good a director, but she was kind of already knew what the character was. And so I was really excited to even just to have a film that's kind of featuring an older woman, and Yasmin was so great in it. Our biggest challenge was COVID at the time, because in our first day of production, actually, someone in the crew tested positive, and we had to shut down. It was incredibly stressful. We kind of restarted almost a month and a half later, and you had to think about whether we could get the same crew, whether we could get the same cast. I was so lucky that they were all ready to come back to it. Moving, thought-provoking, and funny. Everyone kind of takes out a different thing from a film, I think. So it's not really so much as what I want to say, but I do want people to think about the idea of home and the idea of loneliness that we have. What is the thing that makes us feel less lonely, and where is that sense of home for us? Would be, I guess, an idea that I wanted to kind of explore with this film. Comedy is one of my favorite things, but I love comedy that has a lot of drama in it. I'm actually doing a comedy pilot right now. Well, I'm working on it by myself. It's called Couplehood. It's about the power struggle between this couple. So yeah, that's the next project.
It's ultimately a mother-daughter love story set at the sea. It's Rose, the mum's birthday, 60th birthday, and Genevieve has taken her out for the day to try and celebrate the best she can. But there's been some news, a big, huge bombshell that we subsequently discover. And it's the tension between they're trying to have a really great time when actually there's a massive great elephant in the room.
It was your nana's poop that killed your granddad, you know.
Granddad died of an heart attack.
No, it was the poop that killed him, really.
It's based on my life story, basically. A situation that I had with my mum, terminal illness. My mum had early onset Alzheimer's. So it was just writing a piece about that. I wanted to encapsulate what it's like to have a mum with early onset Alzheimer's, especially when everything that's portrayed in present media and culture is of much older people suffering with dementia and Alzheimer's. It's something you don't expect. For example, like when I was 28, my mum getting diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. prior to the script being a short, I had written a TV pilot, which had been taken to Amazon in America, and with a production company, and we wanted to go in different directions, and it was such a personal story for me. I decided not to go ahead with that, which was quite a blow because it was going to be my big break. It did mean that there was the potential that this would never be made. So I then thought, right, well, let's write it into a short. I took it to the BFI and they said, we love this. Who's going to direct? And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, we think you should. That was a shock and a surprise, but I was really grateful, and has made me want to just direct so much more. Interestingly, since then, I've been in the BBC Writers' Room, Drama Writers' Room. I was paired with Heyday. We're just going into development now with a version of, it's very different characters, etc., but a family dealing with early onset Alzheimer's in the Northeast. Was it really painful? No, it was. Oh God, I needed to say it. It's something I needed to talk about because I didn't talk about for the first couple of years of the illness, and so because there's so much shame and stigma surrounding Alzheimer's and early onset Alzheimer's and mental health in general. It was a real release, actually, and so joyous to shoot it in a place where we used to holiday. And I used to go with my mom and my auntie and her best friend, you know, during the holidays and what have you. So I was 8.5 months pregnant and I had a massive bump. My body was being so creative. I was being so creative. I was just absolutely on a high, and literally I was up high. Every 5 seconds I needed a wee. We had basically an adult potty. That's the main thing. Oh, and also that Fiona, our lead, so Fiona plays the daughter Genevieve. The second to last shot, she's punching something, you'll see, and she sort of dislocated her hand or something, and we were like, oh my God, are you all right? Do we need to get to the hospital? She said, I think I do, but let's wait, let's get that final shot. So we got the final shot, bless her, and then my producer whisked her off to hospital. Our body double, Sheila, she was absolutely phenomenal. And then at the end, we all ended up in tears because she was telling us that basically she'd done this job. This is the first time she'd done anything like this, but she wanted to get out of her comfort zone. And the money that she was getting given from the shoot, she was going to buy a dog with. She was so emotional, and we were so emotional as a result. That was really, really beautiful. It made it all feel really worth it. And, you know, filmmaking is more than just the film itself. I knew in my mind very much who I wanted these characters to be. I didn't want them to be drama school, you know, people. I didn't want that energy of actors. I wanted that feeling of a real people. I knew immediately when I saw Genevieve, when I saw Fiona. I knew immediately. We had a casting director, and she sent me several people, and I was like, I want her. I absolutely want her. Unfortunately, she wanted the job, so that was great. With regards the role of Kate, it was a tricky one because at the time, obviously COVID, we were telling, you know, the country was telling women of sort of 60, 70 to shield. I needed a woman in their 60s and 70s to sit in a car for 3 days, you know, with random people all around them. So that was quite challenging. In the end, Kate, I just felt had so many instincts that I wanted in the character of Rose. What worked so well was Kate and Fiona are such different actors. They come at acting and performance from such a different angle. It created energy on set, and it brought a dynamic between the two characters, which was absolutely perfect. I think it's the same message as I really want in all my work. Life is hard, but if you surround yourself with the people that you love and that love you, you'll find a way through it. And there's always light, even no matter how small, at the end of the tunnel. I really want to show something with this piece and also with my TV show, which shows the absolute chaos, beautiful chaos that exists in the middle ground. and how love can see you through all of that. And actually, there's so much humor. So humor and love will see you through the darkest of times. Yeah.
Біткен жерде 2 күнде аялдауға көндірем. Бұдан ұзақ күте алмаймыз. Айғаным, сізге де кету керек. Жоңғарлардың, барлаушылардың жақын жерде көріпті. Дала заңын жиі бұзады.
The idea to write something about the past of Kazakhs only after completing my studies at the Kazakh National University of Arts in my city, in Almaty, when I already received a diploma and traveled the world to NIFA in Los Angeles. My preferences in the film production and cinematography have more or less formed, and I wanted to try to create film based on folklore. I was very much inspired by such films, for example, The Witch, and TV series of Game of Thrones. I really like this genre of fantasy, you know. So I think I will try to do something like a Game of Thrones in Kazakhstan, because we have fairy tales and history, drama. I want to create films like that. So yes, I will try to continue. I already shooted the second one. A lot of people don't know about our culture and mythologies. After the Soviet Union history, we need to remember who we are. So I want to shoot films for my people at first, but I think the people around the world will be interested in our folklore. So I want to do my films to the people around the world. But for first, of course, for my people in my country. 4 months. And my first film was done. But the second one was made during 1 week. The second film is second part of first film. It was more easier to create the second one than first one. First one was really hard to do. During the shooting, during one of the night shifts when the generator broke, for a while, half of us were in the dark, in the mountains, up to our knees in the snow. It was very scary without any electricity. We can hear wolves scream in the night. It was difficult, but the final production was perfect. And in my movie, I think I've done my best. The second film is done. So I think I will try to be a part of your next film festival with the second part. We need to be brave. When you think that you can't do it, sometimes, but you need to do it. My first and last advice for the filmmakers around the world, be brave. And that's all.
I heard a loud noise outside. I dropped my keys. I'm fairly sure there is a cloaked figure in the garden. He's just kind of stood there. Basically, Michael's got a background in sound design. You did not sound design, music production, sorry.
Yeah.
And I've been an actor for the past 5 years. When lockdown hit, we were like, hey, let's make something for my show reel, just so we got something to do creatively. So we made a short film. And then we realized we really enjoyed it. So we made another one. And started to kind of really focus on the craft, but we realized there's so much we didn't know about filmmaking, every aspect of it. So we started to make these kind of like shorts, but they're more like artist sketches where we'd make a short film with the sole idea of improving one aspect or a couple of aspects of our filmmaking. So like The Hunter we did, that was really, it was kind of a focus on trying to tell a story in 90 seconds. But really for the technical side, it was how do we light to create atmosphere and editing to make something quick and snappy. And then, so after a few of these, we kind of were like, yeah, I think we're ready to take on something bigger. We made a concept that we really liked, and we're like, right, we're going to do it. The biggest task we've ever undertaken, and we wrote Spooky Bastard.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you noticed this is a comedy as well. That's
relieving.
Went right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because it's actually, you might assume from the fact that it was like the film we chose to make that we were like huge horror buffs or anything, but we're actually not. We do like the genre, and we know there are great examples of horror films, but
I think we surprised ourselves with how much we enjoy horror, because the original concept of it was like there's a guy who wakes up and he's in a film.
Yeah.
And that's it. We were like, oh yeah, we quite like that. That's a funny idea.
Yeah.
And originally we were like, we could do a rom-com, but we were like, well, I don't know how many legs how far that can go.
Yeah.
With our kind of like what we reckon we could get as a budget, we use that very loosely. We were like, right, what do we have? We've got a house, right? We can do a monster in the house. We can do a horror film with this concept. So they just kind of married up perfectly. There was nothing directly inspired. I mean, obviously, kind of like Edgar Wright style stuff. People often say, like, "Oh, yeah, it's quite reminiscent of that." And I think we grew up watching Edgar Wright,
yeah,
so
that's kind of
we know that. But
embedded. Yeah.
Over Christmas this year, we were watching Gremlins, the kind of horror Christmas film, which is also a comedy. But it's and we were like, oh, this is so clearly inspired so much of particularly Spooky Bastard, that so many of our films.
Yeah, in a really subliminal way that we hadn't really realised. That was one where literally down to like certain shots and certain kind of things, we basically lifted for this film that we hadn't considered ourselves as like paying homage to it or anything.
Yeah.
Specifically, like with the aspect ratio thing, I think it was to do. Again, in a way, it's almost like meta tropes. In a way, it's sort of like you expect certain types of films to maybe have that really wide aspect ratio, and that,
I think we wanted to show, because at the time the character Helena isn't involved going on in Jamie's life.
Yeah.
And we were like, because one thing we really want to do anyway, and we really think it's really important, is like, when you write something, why is it a film? It needs to be made to be a film, right? Because otherwise you could write something and it could be a radio play.
Yeah.
So we were like, right, okay, so how can we use filmmaking to tell the story as well?
Yeah. So that framing device was kind of a way to essentially contribute to the fact that he's in the film, she's not, and it's a visual way of representing that.
We were actually quite unsure about the joke for a bit.
Yeah,
as
we
well.
were. Yeah.
So we were like, is it just too on the nose? Are we kind of just saying what we're doing? But it's one of the jokes that's been called out the most for good reasons.
And in the end, because I was worried that it wouldn't be kind of like, one thing I really wanted out of that particular thing was kind of for it to be quite unknown, like, it sort of slips in, you don't really notice it until it gets called out. And in the end, I do think that it did actually work out. I do think it's fairly subtle until it gets mentioned. That plays into that bigger idea of like tropes and expectations and things, I think, really. As well as being a kind of narrative device to say when, because then eventually, obviously, there are points when Helena is in that wider aspect ratio. Yeah.
It's awful. No, not really.
It's going to be like any. I think in a lot of ways, it's like any collaboration where it's like there are distinct differences in the way we want to do things that mean, you'll suggest something that I wouldn't have thought of, and you get that benefit of collaboration.
And we'll kind of take lead on different things as well.
Yeah, there's a bit of delegation going on, isn't there?
Yeah, because especially like in post-production. So I'll kind of take lead on the edit. Sometimes I'll do a rough edit, and then we'll come in and be like, I don't know, I think we should try like this, and then you'll jump in the chair.
Yeah.
But when it comes to kind of anything sound or music, you're usually lead.
Yeah, that's usually I'll sort of get an idea together, present that, and then you'll
work
have
on it
feedback
together.
and we'll work on it together. Yeah.
The highest friction conversation we had was about the totem throughout the film.
Oh yeah.
And I was just worrying that it's not gonna pay off. No, it doesn't make sense, but it's not gonna pay off.
Yeah.
And I was like, we should just get rid of it. And I don't know. So I guess the thing is, because we live in the same house, so these conversations will always happen.
Yeah. You're always talking shop.
Yeah.
The presiding thing is, I think our visions do marry up a lot more.
Yeah,
diverge. Yeah. So it's actually pretty smooth, and I think there is that element of sometimes knowing, I think, what each other are going to say or want out of something, but with a healthy amount of kind of.
And we do have the time to talk through it as well. It's not like we got there on the night of filming.
And have to have
a massive
big argument about how to, what angle to use. It's like that argument's already happened weeks before, like over the dinner table or whatever.
Yeah. We've probably got some little projects that we do because we're kind of, it's like an addiction, filming. So we'll just be like, should we quickly But we've got one big project that we're kind of working on now, and there's the BFI Film Fund application around the corner. So
we've got earmarked for that.
Yeah, going to try get something together for that, which we're desperately looking for a producer for. Even if we don't manage to get an application for the BFI, we've got what we want to be working on next is again the biggest task we've ever undertaken in a new realm. We know we want to work with a crew, so we've got to start building some kind of connections of people who want to work with us, most importantly, and we want to work with.
I studied film at university for 3 years and went into freelance video production. I've been sort of making films since I was about 14 years old. I had a film called Forbidden Fruit back in 2016 that was shown at the Beeston Film Festival. Was very proud to be selected then. I'm very proud to be selected now. And as a Beeston lad, it's great to be back. Oh, well, thank you very much. I mean, it's always sort of the idea when you come up with a short film that you're trying to create something as unique as possible. So I'm very glad that you've sort of identified that. It was just based on true events, really. There was a family cat that sadly passed away in the post-production of the film. But I heard a story that he was going to neighbors' gardens and pooing in their garden. And then there was complaints back at my family's house. And I just thought it'd be a great idea for a film because a neighbor who complained sort of was holding up a picture of my cat, and just saying like, I've got proof kind of thing. And it sort of, it just kind of, the cogs kind of started whirring, and I sort of was, just thought it'd be a great idea for a short film. So the lead actor is Michael Mayunda. He's just a fantastic local actor. I really do think he's going on to bigger and better things all the time, and was very fortunate to sort of tie him down for this before he sort of, escapes the stratosphere. He's just doing so well with some of his short films, and it was just a pleasure to work with him. In terms of sort of coaching, I guess, and direction, I think a lot of that for me comes in the script, and a lot of the sort of action lines. I put quite a lot of time into the character's background and their motivations, and I kind of tried to put a lot of that into the script beforehand. But I did send him sort of pages and pages of character backstory kind of thing to say, why is he so obsessed about this? And I sort of came up with the idea that he was a sort of a data analyst or something like that, and that sort of explains why the house he's living in is quite large, and why he sort of got this sort of obsessive kind of compulsive mindset. But like I said, working with Michael was great. He understood the script from the off, showed up, and did a fantastic job. Animals or children, I think, is there might be difficulties with working with both, but yeah, together I guess that would be even more challenging. Basically, the house we filmed in was owned by Mark Aldridge, who plays the neighbor in the film, and his wife Caroline is also an actor as well, and she kind of helped coach Squibs, the feline performer in the film, to kind of get through a lot of the scenes. You know, she was always on hand with a bag of treats and was just kind of like picking him up and trying to put him in the shot. It was challenging, but it was so satisfying when you saw kind of the dailies, like the slow motion scenes of like the cat, and yeah, Squibs did a great job. I suppose in terms of the sound design, I mean, there's a particular shot at the start of the film where he first spots one of the turds on the garden, and the camera sort of kind of slow Barry Lyndon kind of zoom into Michael's face. And yeah, the sound design for that is something that I sort of worked quite hard on to get the right sound effect. I kind of used the classical trope of using the sound of someone hitting a triangle and then reversed it, and it sort of gave that sort of sound effect of like cerebral paranoia that, you know, I think they've used in Taxi Driver and a lot of other films. It's become sort of a trope kind of thing. So I sort of wanted to use that trope again. On top of that, sort of layered the sound of a guitar amp, so like a cable feedback sound of like a cable just hanging out of a guitar amp to sort of convey that sense of paranoia, and that his psyche is constantly buzzing like a fridge almost. I'm not really sure where my the inspirations for that scene where you've got Vivaldi's Winter Piece, and I think that music just lends itself quite well to slow motion photography. So I think that's where that scene sort of manifested. As I said, David Rubenstein, you know, he's a fantastic composer, and it's always a pleasure to work with him. He's over in the States, so we sort of we do a lot of our admin over the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to work with him, and he works very well to specific briefs and motivations. We talk a lot about the motivation of a piece and what kind of instrumentation we want to use and everything. But yeah, he's fantastic. I've been working on a project for quite a while now that was filmed back in January, and that's called The Morgue Party. It's a folk horror about a secret society who basically steal bodies from the morgue, dress them up in sort of historical clothing, and sort of have parties with them. Sort of explores an alternative method of grieving, I guess. But yeah, it is a comedy, believe it or not.
The documentary captured the struggles of a group of young girls in one of the most underprivileged schools in Tehran. During the documentary, Kimia manages to get these girls to talk about their dreams and their hopes.
This is a everyday story in Iran. This film was made in one of the schools in major city Tehran, the capital. You could have imagined what's going on in the rest of the cities in Iran.
Kimia went to a school in Iran, a film school for all girls, which there is only one of them in the whole country in Iran.
She is supposed to study in Sorbonne, but right now, because of improving her French and because of her physical situation right now, I mean, she was diagnosed with MS. She decided to stay in Lyon. I guess in less than a year, she has to move to Paris.
the Islamic Republic of Iran was turning teachers and tutors into dictators. And I've been engaged with this whole system from a very young age. And I've tried to fight back this dictatorship in schools for years, but it wasn't enough. So I decided to make this documentary. This movie was almost a prediction of the same generation that started the ongoing revolution in Iran, the women life freedom. 2 years before the start of this movement, me and the girls in the documentary have shouted this revolution. If I had known about today's revolution slogan, women life freedom, I would have put only these 3 words in my film's description, because those 3 words are the reason I made this documentary. She's promised all those girls in the film that she make the voices to be heard, and this is her mission. And then it became, I think, my mission to help her to put her film out there. It's almost, you got to look at it as a group of people, children. These are children are in a prison and they want their voice to be heard. So obviously you can't get permission to film, people in prison.
Because they found out and they needed the permissions, and she was doing it secretly. They banned her from school and they banned her from shooting the rest of the film. We just thought of finding a new way to put this footages together and make a new film out of it, because the thing that she had in her mind back then was like a much bigger film than this. The editing was so hard because the lack of the footages that she needed. Some of these girls who are actually in the film, they can easily get into trouble by just being in this film. So this makes the process of making a film in Iran even harder, especially when it's a documentary. This is not just a movie she made. This is a movie that an all-girls school made, and they let Kimia to film them. So the process is very complicated and very, very risky.
What makes this film significant is how Kimia worked with a very low budget and minimum sort of equipment to bring this film together. She's filmed it, she's written the script for it, she's edited it. So she's done everything herself, as she also says in her film that she borrowed the camera from her friend. And the regime is a gender apartheid regime that doesn't want to give that sort of opportunity to girls, to women, to study in subjects like this, because they know the power. Look how powerful a film like this is, and that's something that it doesn't matter what kind of equipment that you have and how much budget you got, you can never pull a story like this because you don't have that experience.
We did 3 different films together, 2 already. One is school, the second one is almost ready, and the third one is not shooted yet, but we're gonna do it soon. We're thinking and we're talking a lot about the third project of her, upon her life, so it has the same voice that this film already has. Yeah, the second film is about abortion, about 2 kids, 2 girls. One of them is like by mistake is somehow pregnant, and she cannot keep the baby. So it's about 2 16 years old girls who decide to get rid of their baby in a car while they're driving to the school. It was a very hard movie for her to make, because the whole situation happens in a car in a daylight. We didn't have any permission also, so it was risky, very hard to do, and because of the low budget that we had back then, it was a very hard thing to do, but we did it.
More than being in a festival is for her voice and her friend's voice to be heard. This is the voice of a generation in Iran who sort of like, it's almost like they're imprisoned. So they want the world to hear their voice. So it's more than just a film, it's a message that the world needs to hear. And that's what it means to Kimia to be heard.
A 20 years old girl from Iran getting out of country and a very bad situation. It is all that she can ask for, I guess.